everybody. Thanks for joining us today. My name is Howie Heckman. I'm one of the software developers here at PTS. Today I'll be walking you through one of our Getting Started with Tracerplus and Tracerplus desktop webinars. As usual, at the end of the webinar, we'll have a question and answer period. So as I go through everything today, if you guys have any questions, please feel free to type them away in your chat panel there. Okay, so before we get started, just like to mention again what we're going over. We're going to kind of show you in a live demonstration how to quickly and easily get up and running with Tracerplus and Tracerplus desktop, downloading a pre-configured application from our Solution Center. It's always a good starting place for people just getting to know Tracerplus. We'll be deploying that to a mobile device, and then maybe I'll make some changes and modifications to that application so you can see how easily you guys can modify what we have developed already on our website and what you can do with those and change them to fit your needs. I won't be going into our Tracerplus Connect product in detail today, but we do have a product called Tracerplus Connect, which allows you to sync up your mobile applications that you develop for these different mobile devices, either an Android-based or Windows Mobile or CE device, to a pre-existing database or Excel spreadsheet or simple text file. So that's the syncing tool. But today we'll be going over Tracerplus Desktop, which is the design tool, the drag-and-drop designer for designing these mobile applications in mobile forms. And then Tracerplus, which runs on the mobile device. And that can either, again, be either Windows Mobile CE or an Android-based device. It's up to you as to which platform you'd like to develop for. Okay, so with that, let me jump out of this short little PowerPoint presentation. I'd just like to mention before I get started that all of the software I kind of used today is available for free trial from our website at tracerplus.com. So if you'd like to trial everything you see here today, you can kind of even follow along with what I'm doing. You can go to tracerplus.com, go up to this trial section here. If you go to the free trials, you'll see the downloads for all of the software. And again, there's 3 parts to the software. Today we'll be using the Tracerplus desktop tool to design our mobile forms. There's the Tracerplus mobile client, which runs on either the Windows Mobile or CE device or an Android-based device. And then like I mentioned, the Tracerplus Connect syncing tool, which allows you to marry up the forms you've created for your mobile devices to a pre-existing database system, Excel spreadsheet, or text file. So all of those are available on our tracerplus.com site. They're available as free downloads. The only limit in the trial is the amount of records you can transfer to and from the mobile device. So every time you do a sync, say, with Tracerplus Connect, it'll only send 5 records to, say, your Excel spreadsheet if that's what you have configured. Or if you do a file import or export of your data, it'll only transfer the first 5 records that you've collected with Tracerplus. Okay, but that's where you can go to download all of the free trials. I do have Tracerplus Desktop set up on my PC here. This is Tracerplus Desktop, kind of the home screen of the application. I also have a Windows Mobile-based device connected to my PC, and I'm screen sharing that. So this is actually a barcode scanning device that I have hooked up to my PC, and I'm sharing the screen. You can see this is Tracerplus, the mobile client for a Windows-based device, and it's in a default state right now. So I don't really have anything configured. It just has a simple form here for data collection. But now we would want to go ahead after we've installed all this and get up and running with actually configuring an application. Okay, so I'll kind of minimize that just for the time being. Now, the first thing I usually like to mention to people that are just getting started with Tracerplus and just learning the application is to start with our Solution Center. Our Solution Center is a good place to go to find pre-configured apps. We're trying to add new applications all the time, especially with our new Android release. We like to try to develop some applications that support the larger screen sizes of many of the Android tablets. But it's got a growing library of pre-built applications that you can download and deploy for free to a Tracerplus-enabled device. So to do that, basically just install Tracerplus Desktop, install the Tracerplus for the handheld. So at that point, you'll be kind of at the state I am right now. So once you open the application on the home screen, you'll see this Samples button here. And the Samples button will actually just go out to our website and load up a little dialog that displays in this category view here some of the pre-built applications we have uploaded to our website. So you can see there's asset tracking, there's an inventory section, and so on. But you can kind of navigate through these, pick one that you'd like, and you can see a screenshot of it. So to show you, this is what the form will look like when you download it to Tracerplus Desktop and you deploy it to a mobile device. Okay, so you can kind of just go through these. There's a large number of different applications that you can build. Do we have any version 8 ones? But yeah, you can take a look around here and download any one that you like. So I'm going to go ahead and download one today. Let's go to one that I haven't done. Here, how about an event attendance ticket scanning application? So here you can see this one. You scan a ticket, and then it'll display the name of the person that purchased the ticket and also their seat information. So let's go ahead and download that application. So you just kind of step through this little import process. It downloads it directly into Tracerplus, and when you hit finish, it'll open up the application from our website directly in your Tracerplus desktop installation. So here you can see on the left-hand side, I have the event attendance project. It's open. I have 2 forms, a scan ticket form and a ticket list form. So the scan ticket form, that's probably the one you saw from the screenshot there. And if you were to jump over to the form designer for that scan ticket, you can see this is what it's set up to look like. You have the scan ticket, the name, and the seat number. So you can see it's a pre-built application that you can download from our website. And at this point, you could just simply deploy it to the device if this is what you wanted. So I'll go ahead and maybe do that to show you how you can deploy this to the mobile device so you can start scanning these tickets. One thing I would like to mention is if you go to our website, you can also excuse me, navigate these solutions on the Solution Center from Tracerplus.com. So you can see here they're the same applications, but if you wanted to look through them through your web browser, you can do that as well. And you can download them from this location here, but you can also kind of, in a larger view, see all of the different mobile applications that are available through our Solution Center. Okay, so let's just say this is the perfect scanning ticket application that you guys need, and you want to go ahead and just deploy it to the device and start scanning tickets. Well, all you really do is finish that little import process, and then down on the left-hand corner of the screen, you'll see this Build Deploy button. And if you hit this Build Deploy button, it'll bring up a little Build Deploy dialog. Okay, it's going to detect the different platforms you have available. Now here you can see, by default, I have this set to go to Windows Mobile or Windows CE-based device. But if you wanted to deploy this to an Android device, you have an Android tablet or whatever it may be, maybe just an Android phone, you would just simply select the Android option from this drop-down, and now you can deploy it to a connected Android device. And you have a couple different options as to how that Android device connects. If you guys are familiar with some of the different Android phones, many of them connect differently. Some will connect as like a mapped drive, so maybe it'll get a drive letter like a G colon or something like that. You can go ahead and deploy it that way if that's available, or you use one of these options to get it to your Android device. You pick the one that's available for you. For me, I'm just going to go ahead and back to Windows Mobile. If I go ahead and open my form here, you'll see I have Tracerplus already installed on my mobile device, and I'm just going to hit the deploy button. So really, I downloaded the application into Tracerplus Desktop. I clicked the Build Deploy button. I picked the platform I want to deploy to, and I hit the Deploy button. And now you can see I have that application that was developed for Tracerplus Desktop and available on our Solution Center. And it's now available in the on my mobile device, and I can start scanning tickets. Okay. Now this, again, this doesn't have any data loaded up. This ticket list is where you'd load all of your tickets. So you would take a text file, or you'd use Tracerplus Connect to sync those tickets into that form there, the ticket list form, so that every time you scan a ticket, it'll look up the guy's name or his seat. So you'll see all that information populated. But you can see it's a really good place to start setting up applications for your mobile device so that you can learn some of the features of Tracerplus. So like I mentioned there, this name field, that populates the name, the person's name that purchased that ticket every time you scan the ticket, and that's done through our lookup feature. So if you wanted to learn lookups, you can go ahead and load this application to the mobile device, jump over to Tracerplus Desktop. Now you can take a look. If you scan this or you select this name field and go over to the lookups, you can see how the lookup's configured. So I'll go into this in just a bit, but you can see how the lookup's configured, and then you can kind of follow along. If you need to add fields, you can set them up in the same way. So that you can learn the different features. There's a date timestamp. You can see how the date timestamp is set up on the form and so on. Okay, so that's kind of quickly how you can download a pre-built application from our website. If you wanted to at this point, you can go ahead and start changing things. If you wanted to, let's say maybe break out or add a last name field. Let's say your database didn't support just a single name field. you wanted a last name field as well, you can go ahead and move this form around so that you can add that field as an option to your application. So you would just jump over to the field settings. These are all the fields that are set up for this application. I can go ahead and add a new field. And I'll go through kind of this in depth in just a minute as I build something from scratch. But you would add a new field to your form. Go ahead and call it something like last name. Maybe this one you want to just relabel as first name. Okay, you're adding that to your form, and then the next thing you do is jump over to the form designer, actually add that field to your form. So you click the field button here, add the fields to the form, go ahead and move it around as you need it, and then you just go ahead and change the source field of this field that I added to be the last name. Okay, so now you can see I have two fields here available. Maybe my database didn't support just a first name, last name in a single field type option. Maybe I had those broken out. So you can go ahead and on your mobile application set that up in the same way so that now it matches. When you scan that ticket, one field views the first name, the other one views the second name. And again, you can take a look from our pre-built app here how you'd configure the lookup. So this one's configured right now to look up the guy's name. This one you would have to configure to do the same. But just to show you how this may follow through, if I go ahead and now make this change, I can go ahead at any point, save my project, and go to the Build Deploy option. And if I jump back over to the mobile device, you'll see the mobile device here has our old form with just the name field. And if I go ahead and hit Deploy again, this is going to close down Tracerplus, push over the new configuration, open up Tracerplus at the end of the deployment process. And now if you jump into that form, you'll see now I have the new last name field available on the form. So you can see how you can download these applications from our website, change them as you need to, add fields that you may like, but also just kind of learn how Tracerplus desktop works and how Tracerplus works. So you can really quickly and easily build this. You can also do things like add a company logo, like maybe you wanted to get rid of this little ticket here. You can put a company logo on the forms and kind of pretty them up to as you need it. But you have full control over what this form here looks like. Okay? So now I'm going to actually jump over to back to our project, and I'm going to start something from scratch here, just to kind of walk you through some of the features of Tracerplus Desktop and how you may build something that suits you that may not be available through our Solution Center. It's something that you need to kind of create from scratch and design as you may need it. So what you would do is jump back over to the Tracerplus Desktop project. In the tree here, again, you can see I have the scan ticket form. We call them sessions. They're really a form with a database table, so you can save data. There's a ticket list form. This is the form that really just stores all of the ticket information that you have pre-built in your database. So that's available here. If you wanted to add something additional to this, you would just go ahead and up on the top here, go ahead and hit this plus button. And that'll add a new form in a default state to your project. Okay? So you can see here, now it just added session 3. If I were to jump to the form designer and hit create default, it builds just a default form for you that you can now deploy to your mobile device. And in this case, it doesn't really do anything, but it's a new form that you can configure for a completely different application. So that's another very powerful feature in Tracerplus is you can design these forms. So you have on your mobile device, you have a scan ticket form, but maybe you also want to set this up for asset tracking, or you want to set this up for some type of inspection. So you want to go out and maybe do fire extinguisher inspections in a warehouse. You can configure all of those forms within this single project, deploy them to the mobile devices, and every time you go to the home screen of Tracerplus, you'll see each one of those forms that are available that were configured within Tracerplus Desktop. Now this ticket list is disabled here, so that's why you don't see it. But when I go ahead and deploy a new one, you'll see a new form on your mobile device. So you can open up in this single install each one of your forms that you've designed for data collection. Okay, so I'm going to go ahead and configure another one here for something like maybe a fire extinguisher inspection, so you can see how you would configure those type of applications. Okay, so I'll minimize my connected device. I'm going to go back over to the field settings. Now, as I'm going through this, just kind of imagine that you guys already have a paper form that you want to configure into this electronic version and utilize the features of an enterprise or a mobile device that have things built in like barcode scanning and signature capture, image capture, and things like that. You're really taking this form that you guys may have used in the past, and now you want to create an electronic version of that paper form. So what you do really is take that paper form and start adding the fields of information to your session that you collect on the paper form. So if we're doing a fire extinguisher inspection, first off, we'll call it fire extinguisher. Okay, then we'll go ahead and start adding the fields that we collect. So maybe the first one is a location. We want to enter the location of where this extinguisher is. Maybe the next one is extinguisher ID. That could be a barcode. We're scanning. Now we want to upgrade our data collection process to include barcodes. We would just add that extinguisher ID, and if the device supports it, we could scan into this field with a barcode or maybe an RFID tag. The next one, maybe we'll do a pressure reading or something that we want to take off of the device. Maybe a fourth field is a date timestamp. We want to capture when we did this inspection. And then maybe the last one is a user ID. We want to capture the user that performed this inspection so that if we ever have to go back and there's a problem, we can see who performed the last inspection. Okay. So here I just added the fields that basically maybe I had on the paper form, and these are something that someone would hand write out on that paper form. So as you're setting this up, just kind of keep that in mind. You're just really going one-to-one to all the fields you'd like on your form. And then if you jump over to the form designer and you refresh this, you'll see it'll build this form based on the fields that I just added. So I have location, extinguisher ID, and so on. You'll see those are now available on the form. So if you were to deploy this to the device, which I'll go ahead and do, you have a very basic form for fire extinguisher inspections. Now I'm going to go through and kind of clean this up a bit in a minute, but just to show you, every time really you make a change in Tracerplus Desktop, you would just go ahead and do your deployment. It's going to push that configuration down to the handheld, open it up when it's complete, and now you'll see your new form available. And this one's actually going to jump immediately to the tickets. But you'll see your new form available here for fire extinguisher inspections. And if you open it, you'll see it looks like just what you have in Tracerplus Desktop there. Okay, so that's kind of how you can make changes and push them down to the application. Now I'm going to go through some of the settings here of Tracerplus Desktop just so you get an idea of what you can actually build into Tracerplus and the different features you have available for you. Okay, so let me close this again, go back to my form. Now again, we just created a form, a very simple form. It just has 5 text fields here, and really the user has to keep going through and configuring, or they would have to keep typing in the values for each one of these fields. Now, an electronic device, that's not very useful. We want to kind of use the features of the device to do some of that for us and maybe validate the data and things like that on the form so that there's no bad data coming back into your database or wherever that data is landing. Okay, so to do that, we're going to go back over to the field settings here, and we configure the attributes of each one of these fields. So for instance, if we wanted to pre-fill out the date time, we don't want the user to have to type that in, we would just go ahead and select the date time field and change its data type here to date time. Now you can change the format of what that date time looks like. Maybe you just want the hours and minutes, or maybe you just want the month, the year, something like that. You would go ahead and configure the format that you'd like for that date time. But just by switching this data type to date time, now when you open the form, you'll have that date time pre-populated on the form so the user doesn't have to type it in. It's entered automatically. Another option you may want to turn on for that field is maybe make it read-only. Now the read-only will make it so that the user can't change that date time. It's entered onto that form, and it's going to be captured that way. It's going to be the current date time with that value. They won't be able to change it. For the user ID, we want this to be captured automatically. Now Tracerplus offers the ability to create user logins so that when you open up Tracerplus, you're forced to log in. That is set up in the admin section here of Tracerplus Desktop. You can add usernames, passwords, and also what sessions they have access to. So if you want to limit them to particular forms on the mobile device, you can configure all of that through here so that you can limit them to certain applications on the device. And then over in our fire extinguisher inspection, if you want to capture that user ID, all you really do here is change, in this case, the field type to be a variable. A variable allows you to do different things like capture a username, capture a device ID, which would be a unique number for each device. You can also do something like an auto number field. You can capture the input type of how that data was entered into the field. So that's useful for cases like when you can scan into a field with a barcode or type in. You can capture how that was entered, so you know that the person scanned a barcode versus keyed it in with the keyboard. But for this one, we're going to leave it as user. So now every time you open this form, it's going to capture the current user that the current username of the person logged into Tracerplus so that you know who performed this inspection. One thing I'd like to note is when I deploy this, you guys are going to see a long number in this field. That's because I'm not going to configure them today, but I don't have user logins configured. So what it does is it puts the device ID, which is a unique ID for this device that I have connected, in this field. So instead of capturing the username that's logged in, it's capturing which device was used for the inspection. But that's only because I don't have user logins turned on. Okay, so I'm still going to go ahead and configure different things here. Location, maybe I only have a limited number of locations that I want to capture for my data collection here. So for this one, maybe I want to switch it to a drop-down. So this drop-down now will allow us to select from a limited number of items for our inspections here. So let's just say we have a couple of rooms that we want to check. So I'm going to add rooms 102 through 201, things like that. So you're just adding from the list of items that the user is allowed to select from. So that'll put a drop-down on your form. For the extinguisher ID, I probably want to leave that just kind of as just regular text and allow the user to scan a barcode into that or key a value in. So to do that, I'll leave it as a regular text. For the pressure reading, maybe I just want to make sure that that one's a number. So I'm going to change the data type to a number. So it won't allow them to key in alpha characters. Okay. Some of the other options you have here, so I've configured a bunch of different stuff on my form. I also mentioned you have validation settings. So validation settings would allow you to validate the data on the form. So for instance, in extinguisher ID, I don't really want to allow the user to submit an inspection without an extinguisher ID, because then the inspection's kind of useless. So what I'll do is maybe put in a min length value in my extinguisher ID. So maybe it has to be at least 4 characters. 4 characters is maybe what your barcode is for all of your extinguishers. You'll make sure that they scan that. You can also do a barcode type validation. So if all of your barcode types are code 39, you can make sure that that validation is done on that barcode type, so the user can't type it in, or they can't scan, their Coca-Cola can, and it's being scanned as a valid extinguisher. But you would go through here and just kind of configure the different validation settings. There's a lot of different stuff here for you can do custom sounds, so that if there is a particular validation failure on the form, you can play a different WAV file for that so you know exactly what the error was. You can display a custom error message, please scan extinguisher, so that it's not, it's more descriptive for the person using this. So let me put that in. And you have a lot of different options for validating the data here. In the after scan settings, this is where you're controlling the flow of how you're entering data on the form. So in my case, I usually probably want to start on the location field. So that's the first field that the person will enter when they're doing the inspection. So I'm going to go location. I want to make sure that the cursor immediately jumps down to the extinguisher ID after that. And then maybe from the extinguisher ID, I want to make sure it jumps to the pressure reading. And at the time of the pressure reading, I want to say, okay, once they key that in and hit enter, they're probably done with the inspection. So I'm going to go ahead and say auto submit on the pressure reading. So once they key in a value for the pressure reading, it's going to go ahead and save that inspection to the database, and you'll be ready for the next inspection. So what I'll do here is, because pressure reading is the last value, I'm going to turn auto submit on, but I'm going to make sure it goes back to extinguisher ID. So now, as you're entering data onto this form, jump over to the form here, the user is going to be prompted really to enter the location first. When they select the location, they're going to be prompted to, the cursor will be in the extinguisher ID. They can scan the extinguisher ID. Then finally, the cursor will jump down to the pressure reading. They'll key in a pressure reading and press the enter button. That'll save this inspection and jump the cursor back up to the extinguisher ID so they can scan the next one. So it speeds up that data entry process to allow them to jump around on this form in the most useful way. So they're not really, they don't have to tap on the screen to get the cursor in any particular spot. They're just really going through the flow of what they want to enter in that form, and it's kind of controlling that for them. The last one I want to do is, you'll notice I jumped pressure reading back to the extinguisher ID so they can quickly scan an extinguisher, key in a pressure, scan an extinguisher, key in a pressure, and so on. For the location field, I'm going to turn off clear on submit. That will maintain the location that they select in this field across submitting records. So they only have to enter, say, a room 102 once. Once they enter that value for every extinguisher and pressure reading they enter, it's going to save that inspection to the database with that location. Okay. Some of the other options here I'd just like to mention, lookup options, like I mentioned before, this is where you look up information about an item. So a useful case for this, let's set up something similar to what they have here, scan ticket and a ticket list. For my fire extinguisher inspection, I want to look up fire extinguisher, and maybe I'll do set up a fire extinguisher list so that I can look up the previous reading. So I'll go ahead and add a new session here. I'm going to call this one extinguisher list. Spell. Okay, I'll go ahead and put extinguisher list in there. All I'm going to do is do an extinguisher ID, because we need a value to so that Tracerplus knows how to find the extinguisher, and we're going to just do previous reading. Okay, and let's just say we want to display that to users. So I'm going to go ahead and remove the other field. So this table here would generally be just pre-populated from your database, or maybe, let's say you're in an Excel spreadsheet of all the previous readings that you took. You would populate this form with all of those values. So it's really just being used as kind of a storing place for all of the previous extinguisher inspections that you have done. So now to look up this previous reading, I'm going to jump back over to the fire extinguisher inspection form, which is the one the user is actually using. I'm going to add a new field here, and I'm going to call this one previous reading. Previous reading. I'll just put previous there. And then what I want to do is now configure this to be a lookup, because I want to look up the previous value. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to select the previous field. I'm going to select Enable Lookups. And now I'm going to configure where this data is coming from, where that previous value is coming from. So I'm going to select the source session to be extinguisher list. That's where it's grabbing the previous data. The next thing I need to configure is how it's going to find that previous value. And in this case, it's pretty simple. It's just going to be finding it based on the extinguisher ID. So you want to match the extinguisher ID that the user scans or keys into this form to the extinguisher ID that was added to the remote extinguisher list session. Okay, so it's just matching the value that you scan on this form to whatever it can find in the extinguisher list. The last thing I need to do is down below select the lookup the results, the display value here. And in this case, I want to display the previous reading. You can also do something like a static value. You can just say like found or not found, things like that. But in my case, I want to set this to be previous reading. So I'm going to display that to the user so that they can see that. Okay, so the next thing I'm going to do is jump back over to my form. Since I added a new field, I want to go ahead and reset this to the defaults. You'll see the previous reading is displayed there. At this point, you can really kind of play with how these forms look. So you kind of have complete control over what this looks like. You can add a company logo or whatever. Maybe you want to make a large font here for this inspection. Make it something like red. But you can just kind of play with what the form looks like, pretty up a bit so that it's not so simple like mine. Okay, so now the user knows what he's doing. But you kind of have complete control over this. You can line these controls up. So let's just say you didn't want it so random looking. I can go ahead and select a bunch of these, align them to the left, and then align their widths. So you can kind of control what it looks like. So there's my beautiful form. At this point, I can go ahead and deploy it to the handheld. You'll notice one thing here is this extinguisher list is still visible. So I'm going to leave that as visible so that you'll see it on the mobile device when I deploy it. Okay. So here is my previous home screen. I'm going to go ahead now and I'm going to deploy this project by going back to the Build Deploy form. It opens up the Build Deploy dialog. I'm going to go ahead and hit Deploy. It's going to close down Tracerplus, push down our new configuration to the handheld. Open Tracerplus at the end of the deployment process. In this case, it jumps right, because this was previously made so that it would jump directly into your scan ticket. So I'm going to hit Home. And now you can see I have my 3 forms that I have developed in my project here. I have the scan ticket, fire extinguisher, and extinguisher list. Now what I want to do is, so I can see a previous value, I'm going to jump into my extinguisher list. You can see it says I have 0 records. It's because I don't have any extinguishers. Now generally, again, this form would be populated from some database table or Excel spreadsheet or text file or something like that, because it's a list that's already pre-built and has all these values. So I'm going to go ahead and just put in and maybe an extinguisher ID of 1,000, and that could be scanned with a barcode. And let's just say it has a pressure reading of 12.4. I don't know what a valid extinguisher reading would be, but I'm going to go ahead and hit submit. So now I have one record there. Maybe I'll put in a second extinguisher ID of 2,000, and this one is a little worse off. It's a 9.8. Okay, so I'll just go ahead and hit submit. So now I have two extinguishers in there. So if I were now a mobile user to start going to do the inspections, if I open up my fire extinguisher inspection form here, I can actually go ahead and start doing the inspections of our fire extinguishers. You'll notice the first field here, I changed that drop-down, so now I have those three values that I had entered into Tracerplus Desktop for our drop-down. One thing just to note, using Tracerplus Connect, you can synchronize these values from a database table someplace or an Excel spreadsheet. So if you had maybe an Excel spreadsheet column A with all of your locations throughout your facility, you can go ahead and sync that directly to the handheld. So every time somebody performs a sync with the handheld, it will download the new location list to that. Or maybe in a better scenario, if you had a database table with makes and models of all of your assets, you could download that information to the drop-downs on the handheld every time you perform a sync. So you can go ahead and perform this inspection. Now here it's prompting you for extinguisher ID. You'll notice the cursor dropped immediately down to that, so the user could actually just pull the trigger if it was a barcode scanning device. And now you can go ahead and key in, and I'm going to just type it in and hit enter. And you'll notice when I do that, it looked up the previous reading down below, so you can see that previous pressure reading already looked up automatically, so the user's not entering that and they can view that information. So let's just say now it went down a little bit. So I'm just going to go ahead and key in the new pressure reading that was entered. At the end of this, I'm just going to hit the enter key. It saves that inspection, and you'll notice it jumps the cursor immediately back up to the next extinguisher ID. So if I have a lot of extinguishers in this location here, I can quickly and easily just kind of scan an extinguisher key and a pressure scan and so on. You can just kind of go through this process. I'll scan my next one. This one kept its pressure and so on. So you can go through and keep scanning and submitting, and you'll notice the record count goes up. Okay, so that is our modified ticket list event attendance project with a new fire extinguisher add-on that we've deployed now to the project. And you can see how easily I was able to add some additional projects to that. So now I'd just like to go back over to Tracerplus Desktop to just touch on, and I won't be deploying these features, but touch on some of the other features that you have with Tracerplus, so you can kind of see the types of applications that you can build. So I used things like the drop-downs, field validation, and so on, but there's a lot of other options you have for your fields on the form. And you can set them through this field type. So for instance, in the location, I changed the field type to be a drop-down, but you have other options here. You can put checkboxes on your forms. You can do the variable options like I mentioned before. You can do a signature capture field, so you can change a field to be a signature field type. And what that does is when you tap into that field on your form, it'll bring up a little signature dialog so you can capture a signature. You also have calculated fields. Let me actually add one of those so you can see that. Let's say you wanted to do a GPS value for your, let's do GPS latitude and then maybe a GPS longitude. Let's say you wanted to capture the coordinates of this this fire extinguisher inspection. You could add GPS latitude and longitude, and you can use them through our calculated fields options. The calculated field options allow you to do different mathematical operations between fields. You can do barcode or data parsing with the calculated fields, but you can also do GPS coordinates. So to do a GPS, let's say you wanted to capture the latitude here, you would just go ahead and over in your function drop-down, change it to GPS latitude, and now this field will be automatically populated if the device supports it with the current latitude. And you can do the same for the longitude. You change it to a calculated, go to the calculated options, change its function to a longitude. And just a note, there's mathematical operations here, and there's also left, mid, and right functions, which are very useful if you want to do barcode parsing. So if you scan like a 2D barcode that may have multiple values in that one barcode, you can, through these calculated options here, parse out the bits of information you want from that barcode and populate the form automatically. So if as an example, if you were to scan the back of a driver's license, you could have an entire form filled out for first name, last name, address, and so on by just that single scan, and all of those values using these parsing functions would be populated on the form as you would expect them in the correct fields. But for this one, it would just be longitude. Okay. The last field type here is an image field type. So if you wanted to do like taking a picture of this extinguisher because it had so much damage that you needed to prove it to somebody or show them and try to find out why, you can go ahead and switch this field type to be image. And now on your form, you can, when you tap into this field, it actually turns to a button. If the device has a camera, it will load up a camera so you can take a picture. Okay. So that's up on the top here. That's a lot of the field settings. Excuse me. Up on the top here, you have all of the different kind of the main menu for this session. I talked about the field settings in the form designer here, but there's also other options for data capture settings. This allows you to turn on and off the barcode scanner. You can turn on and off an RFID scanner. So if you have an enabled RFID device, you can scan thousands of tags at once using that RFID scanner and Tracerplus. You can configure that here. The smart form options allow you to force data into particular fields based on the rules that you have set up. So that's a useful feature if you don't want to control the flow of where the cursors may be jumping around on the form. You can make it so that if a certain type of barcode is scanned, maybe you want that to go into field 1. If a RFID tag is scanned that starts with an A, maybe you want that to go into field 2 and so on. So you can control through these smart form options where data is going on your form as it's being entered. There's an import-export settings here. This allows you to configure the import and export options of Tracerplus. So if you're not using our Tracerplus Connect product to do Wi-Fi syncing or even real-time mode, these import-export options will allow you to manually import and export text files from the device. So if you wanted to use this for the fire extinguisher inspection, you can make it so that every time you finish your inspection, you do a file export data here, and that'll export a text file so that you can then copy over to your PC or whatever to see that data for all of your fire extinguisher inspections. Tracerplus also supports printing from these mobile devices via wireless LAN or Bluetooth, or you can also set up messaging options. The messaging options include email support as well as text messaging. So you can actually email data from your Tracerplus desktop applications directly on the handheld or even text message. So that's useful maybe in this case where you finish up your inspection and you want to send an email off to somebody that is expecting a response at the end of the inspection. You can configure email messaging so that that can get sent off to a particular user. Both of these for printing and messaging, they allow you to customize what those reports look like. So you can design the print label as you want to, and then you can print out like a receipt or maybe some type of label, and you can customize what they look like. So you can print barcodes on them, you can customize the layout, and the same with the messaging. You can customize what that email report looks like so that it maybe comes over as a useful, readable report in that email to the end user. One thing to note with the email is if you capture images or signatures, those will be added as attachments to the email, so those will come across as well. Okay, so I think that's all I wanted to go through today. For Tracerplus Desktop, it's kind of a broad overview of Tracerplus Desktop. There's a lot more in-depth features here that we will be covering in some of our more advanced webinars. We also have some feature webinars that we already have on our website to take a look at more in-depth on some of the features of Tracerplus, so you can kind of get an idea of get some more information on some of these features using the application. I will just mention, before I jump over to the question and answer panel, I talked about today Tracerplus Desktop and Tracerplus. Tracerplus Desktop, you can see it's the design tool. Tracerplus is running on these mobile devices. Tracerplus Connect is the tool that usually at this point, if you're all done setting up this application, you've configured your application for the mobile device, you're all set, you're ready to go. Now I'd recommend jumping over to Tracerplus Connect to synchronize your data, to move the data to and from these mobile devices to your back-end system using our Tracerplus Connect tool. And Tracerplus Connect allows you to really marry up the forms you've created to a back-end database table, an Excel spreadsheet, or just a simple text file. And this is Tracerplus Connect here just loading up. And this is set up here. I only have one sync process. Basically the way this works is there's a source of your data and a destination of your data. And the source of your data could be something like a mobile form that you've created for Tracerplus. Maybe it's your first mobile form, or it's your fire extinguisher mobile form. The destination is where that data is going when this sync process is triggered. So maybe when you put it in the cradle, you want to do a sync, it'll move the data from the source that you have configured to the destination. You can see in this case here, I have it moving from session 1 on the handheld. This is just a default session, it looks like. And it's going to this text file on the right-hand side. So every time you sync this data, it goes from the source to the destination. To sync your data, you can either do a cradle sync, where you put it in the cradle and hit a sync button, or you can put timers in Tracerplus Desktop, or buttons on your form to perform those syncs. So you can have the user, every time maybe they're done for the day, you can have them click a button on the form to do a sync, and that could be a Wi-Fi type sync or WAN sync over like a cell phone data connection, and push that data wirelessly to the destination here. Okay, so that's kind of how Tracerplus Connect works. I won't go into too many details here, but this is the tool for marrying up the mobile forms that you've created to a back-end database table or system. And you can see the destination options you have here. You can send to ODBC, which would be like Microsoft Access, Oracle, MySQL, or so on. You have an Excel spreadsheet that you can sync to, or just a text file. If you were to reverse this order here, you can send data to the handheld. So like I mentioned before, you'd want to probably pre-populate those mobile forms for extinguisher list as well as the ticket list from, say, an Excel spreadsheet. So in that case, you'd select the source to be Excel and the destination to be your ticket list session on the handheld. And then every time you sync that, it's moving those tickets that you have in your database or wherever they are to the handheld, so that when the user scans it, they can see that name. And you can configure as many of these sync processes as you'd like. So when this sync process is triggered, it could go through a whole list of different syncs, so it's moving data to and from a whole bunch of different destinations, and sources and destinations. But we will have focused webinars on Tracerplus Connect, and we also have some on our website as well. Okay. And here, if there are no more questions, I have our contact information up on our website. Please send over any feedback you guys have about our webinars, about the software, anything you may need. If you have any further questions on what we went over today, please reach out to us. We'd be glad to get you all the information you need. And we also have up on our website here, up on this PowerPoint here, our different social media type websites where you can go to learn more about Tracerplus, learn more about the kind of tips and tricks of the application. So we look forward to seeing you guys there and giving us your feedback with Tracerplus. But I guess I thank everyone for joining us today. Please feel free to reach out to us with any further questions, any recommendations on future webinars you'd like to see, and we look forward to seeing you all on a future webinar. All right, thanks again.